So I want to talk about a one world government. Okay, I see it as an absolute necessity to be aiming for. Isolating yourself from the rest of humanity is a crime against humanity. Okay, it's selfish. It defeats the whole purpose of life, which is to strive for fellowship and share love with life forms. Okay, fight for the rights of life forms. So when people start talking about like expansionism and stuff, I'm all for it. Okay, I think there's a method that it should be. I think they should go about it a certain way, but I am definitely for expansionism. Okay, I'm definitely for somebody actually taking over the world. Okay, in a reasonable way, under logical rules. Okay, it's very clear that there needs to be a global government. Okay, a global military. Okay, you can't have a government without it having the ability to defend the laws that it, you know, that it proposes. So a global government, a global military. I'd like to see it divvied up into three branches: judicial, legislative, executive. Okay, the United States could just be a country within the global government. Okay, it's not like they're in control of the whole thing. All right, the global government is separate from the United States, like the federal government is separate from the state government. Okay, you could just divvy out the world by countries under a global government. Okay, the global government has a military and stuff. Okay, it's stationed with all over the world. Okay, it has rights to resources and all kinds of stuff, and it governs the countries. It governs the states within the countries. It governs the local governments within the countries and stuff. But there is a global government, and I see it as an absolute necessity. And I see people that fight that as actually hostile towards the betterment of humanity. So when people start talking about, oh, that nation in history tried to take over the world, yeah, they did. Okay, that's a reasonable thing to do. It's just like, oh, that nation's trying to expand and they're trying to take over the whole thing. Yeah, that's logical. But, does that nation actually have logical laws that is putting in place, in this world government that is trying to create? Like, is it creating an actually fair world government? You know what I mean? So I am all for creating a world government. I am all for expansionism, having negotiations with other governments, saying, look, we need to unite as one government. Okay, we can be separate countries within this one government, and we can discuss who's in charge of both of us. Okay, but we need to unite, and like, and then just taking over the world and finding people that are not cooperative, not willing to negotiate, as actively hostile towards humanity, as like racist people, as discriminatory people, isolationists, people that don't care about humanity, just selfish people. So yeah, people might think that the United Nations is like the attempt at a one world government. Well, they don't have a military. Okay, it's basically just a place where people go and have a meeting, where representatives from nations go and sit in a meeting. Okay, like there's no actual law enforcement capabilities on whatever they agree upon, and the rules that they try to put in place and stuff. They don't have the capability to defend them, so it's just superficial. It's dumb. Okay, there actually has to be a real one world government that has its own military. You can't have a government without an executive part of it. So yeah, if anybody's talking about, oh, expansionism is terrible, colonialism's so disgusting, imperialism, ugh. Like, what are you, some kind of racist? Are you discriminatory? Are you some kind of isolationist that doesn't want anything to do with the rest of humanity? Like, you just want to be in your own territory and, just leave everybody else to die? Like, you're not going to try to protect the world. You're not going to have this global government. You're a problem. Okay? You're disrespecting these people that tried to, like, well, maybe they didn't have, but you're disrespecting the idea of globalization. Like, you're really a problem. So with the pursuit of a global government, okay, it's not like you just go like take over everything without giving anybody a warning or an opportunity to negotiate. Okay? But if they're not willing to, they are against a unified world, and that's absolutely wrong. So if a nation did want to take over the world, I'm not against it. Okay? Now it has to be a righteous nation. I'm against some kind of, you know, nation with some crazy ideologies taking over the world. Okay? Some kind of like dictatorship or monarchy or something. I'm totally against that. But or some kind of like illegitimate theocracy or something, which is anything based on something other than science and logical reasoning. But yeah, as long as somebody's fair about it, okay, the idea of instilling a global government, trying to negotiate with other nations about being a part of this global government, taking rejections to the idea as direct hostility towards not only your nation, but humanity. Okay, I'm not against that. So the global government would need a military. It would need to be able to be stationed throughout the world. It would need access to resources, just like the federal government has all these powers over our nation, and the state governments have their own jurisdiction. It would just be an extra layer. Okay, the countries would have their own jurisdiction, but the global government has its powers over the world. And there could be, there would be, in a righteous one, there would be an electoral process. I understand that a global democratic process where every person in the world submits a vote and they're all counted, I understand that would probably not be doable. So what could happen is people elect their representatives, and then their representatives send in votes for the members of the global government, which is how the United States it's how the United States voting system works. It has the electoral college. The people elect their representatives. The representatives submit the electoral votes. Those count towards the presidency. Okay. So it'd just be something like that, but maybe like the countries have electoral votes towards the global government, that kind of stuff. And there may be a need to adjust how electoral votes are distributed aside from population. But yeah, I definitely see that as the ultimate goal, one world government. You may have heard people talking about a new world order and one world government and stuff, so, I understand that the disparities between the nations are great, and, it may take a very long time to actually be able to create a one world government, but I see that as a logical ultimate goal. So yeah, people start complaining about the United States trying to acquire more land and stuff, and like, just tell them they're crazy. Okay, we should be headed towards a one world government. Now, as far as like immigration policies in this one world government and like border enforcement and stuff like that, I'm not really sure how that would work. I understand that stuff's important. And stuff like language barriers and, there are all kinds of things to consider. But ultimately, this is the goal. And obviously a one world language would be the goal as well.